Welcome to Benny Kazim from the Maythorn Monthly. I don't know if you can see those girls just walking past me, but they're heading down to the fiesta with their paella pan. Everybody's going to be cooking paella on the streets. Seems to me a funny time of year to have a fiesta, but there's one here, so we've come to see it. But first, a couple of weeks ago, the coast of Spain between Valencia and Barcelona was completely wrecked by storms. It was a state of emergency, and it was the worst weather we've ever seen in this area. We've been watching it. I have to admit we hid in the apartment for a few days, but we eventually ventured out and captured some of the damage. So we'll be looking at that in this month's video.
This is an overview of the area we're going to show you in this video. From left to right, there's the Mediterranean Sea, the beach, a concrete path, a lawned area, and then there are road systems leading into the apartment blocks. We ventured out onto that same piece of land you were just looking at during the second or third day of the storm, and this is what it looked like then. We'd been watching the waves from our balcony. They were extremely high and they were crashing over onto the beach, and when we finally got down there, we could see some of the devastation. The actual rubbish had been washed up by the sea, and the sea was still running down the paths and into the road system by the roundabouts. We ventured out again a couple of days later when the sun was starting to break through the clouds and the place was getting a bit lighter, just to see how much debris was still lying around. The amazing thing is just how many pebbles from the beach were inland a bit. Seaweed we'd seen before because the local council seemed to collect that anyway and take it away, but they've got an even bigger job on their hands now. At some point they're going to have to come and move all these stones, and because they're so scattered that won't be an easy job, probably going to be a manual task. One of our regular haunts is the Didota campsite, and I'm going to let you hear my reactions as we walked up towards Didota.
I don't think we can walk in there. This was coffee and cake in the flooded Didota. There we go.
During this visit we also found out why we'd seen dozens of motor caravans parked up round Mercadona. It's because they had to be cleared in an emergency situation where the sea crashed through the wall and flooded the Didota campsite. Several feet deep in water apparently. Everybody was moved off and there are now lots of repairs to do. Time to go to the pub.
We're just recovering from the storm,
and Brian's complaining that he's not got a video of me chatting to him in Spain, so I have just teleported from Bulgaria, which is where we normally do it.
I think we should teleport back to Bulgaria given the weather here.
But, at least it's sunny in Bulgaria.
I gather that the normal thing of shooting models in Spain isn't going to apply just at the moment.
No.
You don't know anyone who actually does singing in the rain then?
Well, someone was asking me to do it yesterday. I said, you find me a lamppost and I'll do it. And an umbrella.
I've got an umbrella.
All right, so we're off for that. There are two girls here, but they are in hiding apparently.
Yeah.
Okay, so Bulgaria then, I think. Okay. See you there.
Welcome to Oresh, Bulgaria. We don't just come here in the summer, we do come here in the winter too. And as long as we're not snowed in, we're fine. We can still get about and mix with the community and go in the coffee shop down below for some coffee, cappuccino, whatever, and some good local company.
Anyway, back down in Svistov and opposite my hotel, there's this pub, the Trumpet, it's called. In the summer it was far too busy, lots of tables outside, but in the winter I've taken advantage of being quieter, found a black cat to stroke, found a pub that actually likes cats, it says so on a poster on the wall, and found some very good food, the Trumpet. Cats and coffee are two of my favourite subjects, and in Svistov there's plenty of coffee available on the streets, not just from the machines that appear every 100 yards, but from these Lavazza coffee points. These are actually little shop units that are full of machines,
dispensing coffee and snacks. Unfortunately, the coffee is always in the native language. I don't understand what types of coffee are on sale. But luckily, I found a machine that was a great help to me. It allows you to switch languages, so if you watch the screen, you'll see me flipping through until I find English. Then you can have a look at the menu. You've got a picture of the coffee. Even if your language isn't here, you could probably recognize what you want. You make a selection, and then it starts brewing it for you. So we'll pick the choc. It's 60 statinki for that, but if you choose the Lavazza brand, it's more expensive, so that's 80 statinki. I don't mind. I paid the extra 20 stinkies. This is a revisit to the Wirral Transport Museum. It's a bit we didn't show you last time. They've got a huge model railway layout working here, and as a great fan of model trains, I love seeing things like this in operation. And of course there's been a recent series, I think it was on Channel 5, where people who were good at railway modelling competed against each other for a big prize, and there were some amazing animations in that. If you're into model railways, you didn't catch the series, you could look it up on a catch-up channel. Here's the Birkenhead Woodside Ferry Terminal again, with a view taken from the bus station, and this is the Mersey Funnel, as it's called locally. It's the ventilator shaft for the Wallasey and Birkenhead tunnels. That was the Birkenhead one. They make sure that under the Mersey all the pollution is sucked out from all those motor vehicles. Meanwhile, on top of the river, the ferry across the Mersey, you know the song, yes, it still runs.
If you look over towards Liverpool, you get a fine view of Liverpool's two cathedrals and the Museum of Liverpool.
There was, of course, once a song about trains and boats and planes, and we don't often get a chance to bring you any boats. We don't use them that often, but the ferry across the Mersey is one interesting trip. It's a big wide river, as you can see, and there are points of interest on the Liverpool side and on the Birkenhead side, and there's a commentary running the whole way through the trip.
The final item this month is about the rollout of new trains on Merseyrail during 2020. They've been preparing for this for the last couple of years. They've opened a new station in 2018 at Maghull North on the Ormskirk line. That involved clearing a site for a large park and ride, but other than that the railway already ran through this residential area, so it didn't take much to get that going. The trains still running on this line at the moment are the old ones from the 70s, but this is likely to be the first line to get new trains because it's likely to be one of the lines that runs past the Kirkdale depot, and that would be either Ormskirk or Kirby. During the last 12 months, bits of Merseyrail lines have been closed while station platforms were altered to take the new trains. The original trains required a ramp if you were to get a wheelchair on the train. If you look, there's a gap here. The new trains won't need this. Before I went to Spain, I went to the Stadler depot at Kirkdale and there was no sign of any activity, so we have to turn to someone else's video that was taken while I'm away in Spain and involves the arrival of the new trains through Eurotunnel from Germany and up onto the UK network. It was the 15th of January when this took place, so we have footage from Mersey Travel TV, from videographer Paul Frost, and also from the Wirral channel, who covered the movement of this train up to Kirkdale, Liverpool.
It's then heading along the main line from Manchester to Liverpool, and just as it gets to Edge Hill it's going to turn off up onto the freight junction which goes to Liverpool Docks. Just before it gets to Liverpool Docks there's a short section which is just behind us here where the Merseyrail line and the Liverpool Docks freight line come together. So the train is going to come up there past Goodison Park. The freight train goes past behind Goodison Park underneath the actual Kirkdale depot where it's going to end up later on tonight, and then it's going to come out of the tunnel just behind and join onto the line here. It's then going to go up to Bilton Oriel Road, which is the next station up the line, to stop and reverse, go back down to Sandhill Station, turn round again, and then go back up into Kirkdale, into the new Stadler facility that they have there, where it's going to spend the night. And tomorrow it's going out on trial runs. I believe it's going to Birkenhead North Depot tomorrow and back over to Kirkdale. So there's going to be some running on the third rail on the network here.
Welcome to the February spot for smart technology. That's me. And three of the things in the opening credits that we're going to cover this month. Home automation. I said I'd do a hub a month. I'm going to do that. The video technology I use, and also the banking technology that we refer to a lot. First of all, let me just quickly show you this. I'm not going to dwell on this month, but it's a little Osmo camera of the sort I already use, only this is a little pocket version of the same thing. It's got its own little screen on the back. Don't know if you can see that because the whole thing is very small, and it produces some marvellous results, but more of that in months to come. It's got a little gimbal, so it's a Steadicam. Home automation, and this month's hub is called Smart Things. That's a tremendous name, but Samsung, it's their product. This is a Samsung TV. So if I turn this on, yes, it came on, good, and then get the Smart Things app up on my phone, I should be able to take control of this TV. Let's just see. Going into the app, I don't know if you can see that again. It tells you I can select the channel number and the volume. Let's put that to the test. Never tried controlling the TV, didn't really think that was a thing. At the moment, it's not letting me do that, but I'll turn it off from here, shall I? Because it's there. So that's really successful. I had to go to this home screen to get that to happen. There are other devices I've got connected, and this SmartThings hub will use technologies that are standard in the industry: Z-Wave, or Z-Wave as the Americans call it, and Zigbee. Samsung themselves prefer Zigbee. So I've got a thing on here called TV Backlight. I've labelled it in the app. Press that, brings on, guess what, a backlight behind the TV. That gives us some background illumination while we're watching TV at night. And the SmartThings hub, which is the thing that we're talking about, is just a little white box down here that could just as easily be in the hall cupboard or hidden away somewhere. But I've got my coffee table tech here, which I went over about a year ago. So that's the SmartThings app. Banking. I told you last year that I'd gone in Spain with N26. They're a neobank. Neobank means it doesn't have any branches, and there aren't any digital banks that are actually Spanish. So N26 is a German bank that I use in Spain and get a Spanish IBAN number. I've come across another one called, I think it was Targo Bank. Actually, I've got a picture of this, of the cash machine by the five-star hotel here in Marina d'Or. They've got a cash machine on the wall, and this cash machine will not make you any charges when you take your money out, apart from currency conversion if you choose to use theirs, but don't do that. If you go to any bank machine to take out cash in Spain these days, and it's something that's been growing over the last 12 months. It'll charge you, the La Caixa Bank down at Marina Doors Central there will charge you €1.80. Some of them, many of them will charge you €2, €3.30. Colin, my friend, tells me, and I came across one in Barcelona last year that was going to charge me €5, and that was Santander charging me €5 to take out my own money. So you have to watch out for these things. Find cash machines that you know won't charge you. There's one in the Marina Door Resort. It's on the wall of the 5-star hotel.
You probably recognise this. It's a tie clip microphone. Who wears a tie? But you know what I mean. It'll go here, and then it goes to this transmitter, which you wear in your back pocket. It's very good for when you're nowhere near the camera, so if I wander off, you should still be able to hear me. And that's what happens with the drone. The drone wanders off way into the sky, and as long as you've still got a microphone sending a signal back, you're okay. This is another way of supporting the camera. This is a clamp, you can probably tell, and on that end of it is a standard fitting that goes on the bottom of any camera. So you clamp this to a tree or a fence, put the camera on it and start shooting. One final thing that I thought was worthy of a mention, on this technology, this is 50 years ago when we were using these, there was a Canon XLR connector used commonly right throughout. The Canon XLR still exists, that is it. It just got a bit smaller. So there you go. Things have progressed, but just a little bit. So this is one of the uses of the technology. There's no way that Ruth with the camera is going to follow me across these rocks. In fact, she's a bit worried about me walking on them in the first place. So I'm heading back now to dry land, but behind me is an outcrop of rocks covered in cormorants, which you probably can't see from here, and I don't think I'll be going close enough to film them. But here we are, the technology of radio microphones.
In the UK, we have classifications for houses like terraced and semi-detached and detached. We need a new one for Oresh, Bulgaria. This is Colin's house. I think we want to call this, and certain others, extremely detached. He's got a lot of land and his neighbours are not very obvious. The views are great, and that's true of most of the houses I've looked at in Oresh. Because the place is very hilly, most of the houses that go up for sale tend to be set into the hills with a view down into the valley. My house is right on top of the hill. There it is. It's pretty isolated apart from the cemetery behind it, and I've been thinking about giving this one up, but here I am standing on top of the flat roof, the bit I'm thinking about demolishing, and seeing if I can persuade myself to do this job after all.
Okay, I'm standing on the flat roof. I'm reckoning this, if this was demolished, this would be the way in. I think you can see where the road is just behind. This tree would have to come down and all the other brush, and then we come through here and we have access to this courtyard. You see there's quite a lot of trees here. There's two really big trees and some posts. I suppose it's not that serious.
The collapse of my house in Bulgaria started with a small hole in the roof. The water got in and the place was eventually destroyed. A similar thing happened to me at my house in Tridin, although it wasn't under my supervision. So every time I see a leak in the ceiling, and this one is at the bathroom and marina door, I feel as though we have to get it fixed straight away. So I've just had the drip that you just saw fixed, and the ceiling had to be repainted because if you try and patch it, it never looks the same. So we've got a brand new white ceiling in our bathroom, as well as no hole and no leak. Back on the Wirral, there's been several water leaks that have come through the ceiling. One of them in one of the tenants' rooms. We fixed the leak. Now we're back fixing the hole in the ceiling. I guess this will need repainting as well. It's one big ceiling to paint though, so I don't know when we're going to get that one done. Talking of ceilings, we've had ceiling and roof collapses at the house in Tridin. It's a couple of years now since that happened, and we haven't had a lot of time to go back and sort this out. But there is slow and steady progress in putting up plasterboard and skimming around some of the gaps.
So it's all about water ingress and repairing ceilings this month. That's our property update. Our footage of the festival, the Fiesta in Benicassim, is being postponed until next month because of the storm coverage we've got for you from Marina d'Or. The resort in January and February is pretty much closed up, and all our regular bars that would normally have seats outside and people on them as well, they're all empty, and there's nothing much going on here at all. But they obviously trust people because all these bars have left out their seats and tables in the outside spaces. We kept hearing the sound of this pile driver when we were out and about, and this is the new development up by the Grand Duque, that area. The frontline apartments, well, they've grown extremely tall. I don't know quite how high they're going. I'm hoping this is the top, because they're already taller than the apartments they're standing next to. They really do dominate the front line here. Anyway, back to the campsites where the devastation caused people to have to vacate Didota and Kibu. We have our own superhero to come and help, although I don't think she did. But this is the Kibu campsite. As you can see, all the outside area has been trashed, as is fairly typical of the scenes we're bringing you. It's been covered in pebbles from the beach. They were just chucked everywhere, and that campsite became unusable. There didn't seem to be any recovery work going on there. Across the way in Didota, though, a lot more organised. Some of the campers themselves were helping clear up. A digger was in place, so it was digging out and removing all the stones along the what was the sea wall. So you can see a long pile of stones where it's been chucking them back to the beach. And in the meantime, our superhero is just playing in the waves. Although this is a brave act in itself because the water is absolutely freezing in January.
Good afternoon, this is Brian Smart. Welcome to the Mid-Wirral motorway, the M53, which brings us to our spotlight on Ellesmere Port. The Wirral not being that wide a strip of land, and we're having a motorway up the middle, means that most people who live in Wirral somewhere live within a few miles of the motorway, and certainly most of the places I'll be going in this afternoon's spotlight are off one junction or other of the motorway, from Vauxhall Motors at junction 6 to the Boat Museum at junction 9. So stay with me this afternoon for my spotlight on Ellesmere Ports, which is brought to you by the Solid Fuel Advisory Service and the approved coal merchants of North Wales. And if you hear any noise in the background at the moment, my windscreen wipers are getting rather noisy. Well, I've moved on now to the centre of Ellesmere Port, the main shopping centre here, and there's a busy industrious noise in the background because I'm upstairs in travel agents. In fact, it's Lofty's Travel Agents in the precinct here, and Joe Lofthouse is with us. The name Lofty's, of course, must come from the family name, but is it a business that you started in your generation?
No, it dates back to my father. Started it about 42 years ago.
And why Lofty then?
It was just a nickname he had from the RAF. His days there, he was quite a tall guy, and they just called him Lofty, and it carried on. So as much his size rather than the name.
The main thing that drew my attention was Get Set Holidays. Is this another part of the company?
Yes, it's a company that specialises in coach holidays to the south of France and Spain. Mainly self-catering, apartments, caravans, tents. But as I say, but on the Costa Brava, a number of resorts and the south of France.
Well, travel agents themselves, they spring up all over the place, and I expect most people's local shops have a travel agent, but to actually have somebody who operates holidays themselves in Ellesmere Port is something.
We sell not only in our own travel agents, we sell in something like 450 travel agents throughout the northwest of England.
and the coaches depart from the northwest, picking up en route to the Channel crossing. Yeah, we base people from this part of the country down in France as relief drivers. The couriers and representatives at the resorts are also employed from the local area.
Well, I've moved on now to a part of Ellesmere Port which, even if you've never been into the centre, you will have passed, because it's right by the motorway, and there are signs now for the Boat Museum and for Waterways, which is a new development down here. And the person I'm going to ask a little bit about it is George Phillips. Hello to you, George.
Hello.
Now, George, you're involved with the diving centre here, which is right next to the Boat Museum, but obviously it's a newer enterprise than the museum itself. So, really, I've seen some of these pictures here, but this is radio. Tell us a little bit about the sort of development that's going on here.
The development due to start is something similar to the Albert Dock complex in Liverpool and something similar to St Catherine's Dock in London. They're spending, it's believed, something like £16 million down here with new hotels, shops, offices, studio apartments, a new canal village and a promenade with possibly a link from here to the Albert Dock in Liverpool with a ferry link.
So a promenade and all the other things you mentioned are going to make it a place where people will come for an afternoon out, perhaps a day out, and a wide variety of things they'll be able to come and see. And we'll come on to your own diving centre in a moment, but I gather amongst the things people will be able to do is live here. There's accommodation as well.
That's right. It's, as I say, the idea is to bring people here like the Albert Dock complex, like the St Catherine's Dock, where it is a nice environment for people to settle and to live. So they've got a nice outlook over the lower basin that's here, and there's all the old ships in the lower basin to look at. So it should be quite an interesting place to live.
Good place if you've got relatives all over the country, easy to find. Junction 9, M53, isn't it?
That's right.
Yes. This pub is the Woodland. You couldn't miss it. It's a big corner site, and if you've driven through the main road in Ellesmere Port, you're bound to have seen it. Gordon and Marilyn are the licensees. Well, licensee, manager, everything, isn't it?
That's it, yes. Cook and bottle washer.
That's right. Well, Gordon, the pub is, as I said, a centre of activity for leisure for people, and not just a place people come for a drink.
Well, we're famous now for the Bassmasters Bowling Classic, which takes place every year in August, which is a televised tournament with the biggest single prize money in Crown Green bowling. Obviously with the bowling green and that sort of facility, we have our bowling club, a men's club with 64 members, a ladies club with 36 members.
That's quite unusual. Marilyn, a ladies bowling club, did you find any opposition to forming that?
Yes, we did at first. I founded the club 4 years ago with quite a lot of opposition, but now things are okay.
And this big day, the Bassmasters, this once a year event, do you have a lot of people here there, I gather?
Yes, the first day we have 200 to 300, going to the last day, 2,000 on the last day.
2,000 people in here?
Yes, 2,000 people, and I cater for most of them. It's all traditional homemade cooking, including homemade chips even, steak pies, hot pots, that sort of thing, all made by my own fair hands.
It's the second anniversary of the Maythorn Monthly, and back in February 2018 I just sold Holly Cottage. I was starting on a project with the house at Trythin, and I was taking on a flat in Kirkdale, Liverpool for another investor. I was also in Spain as usual, and we're going to end this month's Maythorn Monthly with a shot of the sea and the sky that I find absolutely beautiful, as long as you take me out of it. So get rid of me, please.